What did you study in history lessons when you were at school?
When I was at school, our history lessons mainly focused on both national and world history. We learned a lot about significant periods in Vietnamese history, such as the resistance wars against French and American forces, the unification of the country in 1975, and the contributions of important historical figures like President Ho Chi Minh. Apart from that, we also covered major global events like World War I and II, the Cold War, and the rise and fall of empires like the Roman and British empires. I remember being particularly fascinated by the stories of how small countries like Vietnam stood up to much more powerful nations. Our teachers often used documentaries and group discussions to make the lessons more engaging, which helped me retain the information better. Those history classes didn't just teach me dates and events. They also gave me a deeper understanding of how the past has shaped the present.
Did you enjoy studying history at school? Why not?
Yes, I actually enjoyed studying history quite a lot when I was at school. I've always been intrigued by stories from the past, especially those involving dramatic events or turning points in a nation's development. History felt more like storytelling than memorizing facts, especially when we had passionate teachers who knew how to bring the subject to life. What I liked most was learning how past events have shaped the society we live in today. It gave me a new perspective on current issues. However, I'll admit that sometimes the heavy focus on dates and battles could be overwhelming. Still, the overall experience was both eye-opening and inspiring.
How often do you watch TV programs about history now? Why not?
To be honest, I don't watch history programs very often these days, mainly because I have a pretty hectic schedule and prefer shorter, more relaxing content when I do have free time. That said, I do enjoy historical documentaries from time to time, especially those that explore ancient civilizations or untold stories from wartime. Platforms like Netflix or YouTube make it easier to access such content when I'm in the mood for something more educational. I just don't make a habit of it, mostly due to time constraints rather than lack of interest.
What period in history would you like to learn more about? Why?
If I had the chance, I'd love to learn more about the Renaissance period. It was such a fascinating time of intellectual and artistic awakening in Europe, with remarkable figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo making groundbreaking contributions to art, science, and philosophy. What intrigues me most is how this era laid the foundation for many modern ideas, from humanism to scientific inquiry. I think understanding that period better would give me deeper insights into how our current worldview was shaped. Plus, the art and architecture from that time are absolutely breathtaking.
Describe the neighborhood you lived in when you were a child. You should say where in your town, city the neighborhood was, what kind of people lived there, what it was like to live in this neighborhood, and explain whether you would like to live in this neighborhood in the future.
I grew up in a quiet residential neighborhood located on the outskirts of my hometown. It was about a 20-minute drive from the city center, surrounded by rice fields and small hills, which gave the area a peaceful and almost rural feel. even though it was technically part of the city. The people who lived there were mostly working-class families, teachers, shopkeepers, factory workers, so the community was close-knit and down-to-earth. Everyone knew each other, and neighbors would often gather for festivals, or simply chat in the evenings while children played outside. Living there was genuinely enjoyable. It felt very safe, and the sense of community was strong. I have fond memories of riding my bike through quiet lanes, flying kites in the open fields, and sharing snacks with friends after school. Although I've moved to a much busier part of the city now, I sometimes miss the simplicity and warmth of that neighborhood. If I ever have the chance to raise a family, I think I'd love to move back, or at least find somewhere with a similar atmosphere.
What sort of things can neighbors do to help each other?
I think there are plenty of ways neighbors can support one another, both in practical and emotional terms. On a basic level, they can help with everyday tasks, like collecting the mail when someone's away, watching over each other's houses, or lending tools and household items. In times of emergency, neighbors can be the first ones to offer assistance, whether it's helping someone who's sick, calling for help, or even just checking in to make sure everything's okay. These small gestures can make a huge difference, especially for elderly residents or those living alone. Besides practical help, simply being friendly and approachable can also create a more positive and safe environment. A quick chat or a smile can go a long way in building trust and a sense of community. In my opinion, strong neighborly ties are one of the things that make a neighborhood truly feel like home.
How well do people generally know their neighbors in your country?
In my country, I'd say it really depends on the area. In rural or suburban communities, people tend to know their neighbors quite well. They often greet each other, share food during festivals, and help out when someone is in need. The sense of community is much stronger in those places. However, in big cities, things are a bit different. Many people live in high-rise apartment buildings and lead busy lives, so they may barely know the person living next door. There's less interaction, and in some cases, people might not even know their neighbors' names. That said, during special occasions like the Lunar New Year or neighborhood cleanup days, people do make more of an effort to connect. So, while close neighborly ties aren't as common in urban areas, the potential for stronger community bonds is still there if people take the initiative.
How important do you think it is to have good neighbors?
I believe having good neighbors is incredibly important, especially in today's fast-paced and often isolating world. Good neighbors can provide a sense of security and belonging, which can make a huge difference in our overall well-being. Knowing that someone nearby is willing to lend a hand, or simply check in on you, can be very comforting. From a practical point of view, good neighbors can help in emergencies, keep an eye on your house when you're away, or even assist with small day-to-day matters. But beyond that, having a friendly relationship with your neighbors can also reduce stress and promote a more positive living environment. In contrast, having difficult or inconsiderate neighbors can make daily life unpleasant and even affect your mental health. So to me, good neighborly relationships are almost as important as having a comfortable home.
Which facilities are most important to people living in cities?
I think several facilities are essential for city dwellers, but the most important ones are probably healthcare services, public transportation, and green spaces. With the fast-paced lifestyle in urban areas, having easy access to hospitals and clinics is crucial, especially in emergencies or for elderly residents. Efficient public transport is also vital because it helps reduce traffic congestion and pollution, making daily commutes more manageable. Without it, cities can become chaotic and stressful to navigate. Lastly, I'd say green spaces like parks or community gardens are often overlooked, but incredibly important. They offer a place to relax, exercise, and escape from the concrete environment, which is essential for mental well-being. Overall, a city that invests in these key facilities tends to offer a much higher quality of life.
How does shopping in small local shops differ from shopping in large city center shops?
Shopping in small local shops is quite different from shopping in large city center stores in several ways. For one, local shops often offer a more personal and friendly experience. The shopkeepers usually know their regular customers and may even offer tailored recommendations or small discounts. There's a stronger sense of community, and the atmosphere tends to be more relaxed. In contrast, large city center shops, especially big chain stores or malls, provide a wider range of products, more competitive pricing, and greater convenience in terms of location and facilities. However, the experience can feel more rushed and impersonal, with crowds, long queues, and sales staff who don't always have time for one-on-one service. Overall, I think each type of shop has its own advantages, and it really depends on what you're looking for: convenience and variety, or warmth and familiarity.
Do you think that children should always go to the school nearest to where they live?
While attending the nearest school to home might be convenient, I don't believe children should always be limited to that option. On one hand, going to a local school can reduce travel time and help kids build friendships within their community, which is beneficial for their social development. However, I think the quality of education should be the top priority. If a school farther away offers better teaching standards, facilities, or specialized programs that suit a child's interests and needs, then parents should have the freedom to choose it. For example, some schools may have strong arts or science departments that better nurture a child's talents. Ultimately, I believe a balance should be struck between convenience and educational quality, so that children have the best opportunities to thrive.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us in today's interview. Wishing you good health and the best of luck.
Thank you very much, sir. I also wish good health and the best of luck in life.